Welcome to the Big Idea to Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Jake Kelfer, and we got somebody fun today. We got best-selling author. We got somebody who's going to rock your world. We got someone who knows her shit. Please welcome Joy Harrington, best-selling author of The Resentment Trap.
Woo! I've never felt so hyped.
Come on,
This is
we
fun.
get it going here. We get it going over here. How are you, Joy?
I'm pumped. I'm
Good.
excited.
Good. Now, you have a really fun book. It's called The Resentment Trap: How to Fix Your Relationship Without Losing Yourself, Begging for Change, or Blowing Up Your Life. This is a juicy topic. All right. And so we're going to dig into that. And so I just want to start right here, right now, and ask a very simple question. What made you want to write this book?
It's needed. I don't think anybody talks about this in a relationship, but if you actually look into the stats, resentment is the driver of divorce. Everyone wants to blame the big things, infidelity, money, things like that, right? But no one talks about resentment. And resentment is extremely common in any relationship, but especially long-term marriage or partnership, because resentment just stems from you want something and it's not happening, right? You have certain expectations that aren't being met. You have certain needs that aren't being met or disagreements that aren't actually being settled. And we just kind of let stuff pile up over time and it starts to fester and turn into resentment. And at some point, something's either going to happen that breaks that dam, or there's just going to be too much water under the bridge that we can't even deal with it. And that's when divorce
Mm,
comes into play.
okay. Yeah, we're getting deep from minute one. I like this. So, Joy, resentment is one of those things that I feel like people don't fully understand. And kind of like you said, it's often something that kind of gets swept under the rug. So, how does resentment show itself in marriage, and why do people misinterpret it?
I think the number one symptom of resentment is you have resistance. You have resistance towards doing something nice or softening your body language or being the first to apologize or whatever it is. The things we know we should do to have a healthy relationship, we go, ugh, I don't want to do that. They should do it first. That's your sign that you have resentment because you're sitting here going, I'm hurt. I'm upset. So therefore, I don't want to be the first one to do this. I don't want to have to because I'm owed something. I'm missing something from you. And really, what's underneath all of that is resentment. It's just this voice that keeps whispering to you over and over and over again of see what they're doing, or see how they're not following through, or see it's all up to you again, or see they don't help out, or see, and it just keeps telling you you're the only one, or everything's up to you, or they're a piece of crap. And we don't realize it and we let it just keep simmering, and pretty soon it taints everything that we see when it comes to our relationship.
That's interesting. Okay, in the book, you talk about this. And by the way, you guys grab The Resentment Trap. It's a phenomenal book. But in the book, you kind of talk about that resentment isn't really necessarily caused by what your partner is doing. It's
Right.
caused by how you interpret the
Yeah.
feelings of what they're doing. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, two things that we mistake about resentment. Number one is that it's the other person that's causing the resentment. And number two, that it's a bad thing to have resentment. And I'm here to tell you
Mm,
resentment is not a bad thing and you don't need to be ashamed to own that. It's just a symptom. It's just a symptom of something that needs to change in yourself and in your relationship dynamic. There's a couple of things that play part here. Number one, you probably do have dynamics in the relationship that you're not happy with, where they always respond to you a certain way and you're not okay with this. Or maybe you feel like you've been communicating and asking for things and nothing changes, right? Those can be unhealthy patterns in the relationship. But two, we have a voice that's constantly making anything that they do mean something. And most of
mm,
the time, we translate it as negative. So I start asking people, what are you making that mean? When he says this, when he does this, when he doesn't do that, what are you making it mean? Because what we don't realize is we're constantly putting our own spin on it in our own head and writing a story about it and a narrative about it instead of just seeing the facts. So then everything becomes personal. Everything becomes this dagger that we're shooting or receiving instead of something being just neutral. It doesn't actually have to mean that. It doesn't actually have to mean that you're not cared for, you're not loved, that you're all alone, whatever you're making it mean. So when we
mm.
can start removing that voice from it, it allows us to start just seeing the pattern for what it is so that we can actually change it. when you can't see that pattern because everything's personal, that's what keeps you stuck.
So how much of this reframe, this understanding needs to happen on the individual side versus the communication between both people? Is there one that comes before the other?
Well, it's both and. It's
Okay.
both and. I mean, ideally, both people want to work on things, but that's typically not the case in most marriages. At the same time, at least. You might have one person ready and the other person isn't, and then it flip-flops, right? But I would say you can't really improve communication if you are constantly seeing things through a tainted lens, right?
Mm.
Because even if you try to put a band-aid on it by trying these communication tips, as soon as that communication fails or they don't respond the way that you want them to, you're going to go right back into your story of, see, I knew it wouldn't work. See, I knew this was a problem. See, I knew. And it's just going to reinforce the story you've been telling yourself. And then you're going to subconsciously do things to also reinforce that story. That's how our subconscious mind works. We're constantly doing things to actually reinforce the story. So you kind of have to fix both, but I would definitely start with the internal voice because until you can even see that and take that off, communication is just a band-aid that's not even going to
Mm.
work.
Okay. All right. So I'm an incredibly solution oriented person, as you know. Let's say somebody out here is like feeling what you're saying in the first couple minutes here. What's the next logical step for someone to take to become aware and then to challenge their that voice inside their head that assigns this negative meaning?
Well, you start by identifying what your story is. Typically, we all have a story that we've taken on from childhood, and it can be multiple, but there's typically one big one of something you took on about you. That's not necessarily true, but it now taints the way you see the world. And even if there's evidence for the opposite, you're just going to see evidence for your story. And then you're going to
Mm.
create scenarios that back up that story. So for me, it looked like I had to first of all see the story, see where it started, realize it wasn't true, or it didn't have to continue to be true. Maybe it felt true at that time, but I'm no longer a kid. I'm an adult in a marriage. And then taking that out of everything. So learning how to remove that so that I could begin to change my part in the dynamic because that's the really crazy effed up thing is that when we have that story, we will deliberately do things that
Mm.
actually keep creating this unhealthy dynamic and keeping us stuck in this. So it's a lot of conscious rewiring. You get to rewrite that story, but then you also need to start doing the opposite of what you usually do when that story comes up. We have something that we always do. For me, it looked like either just running him over. I'm just going to do it myself because you're not following through anyway. So I'm going to show you I don't need you, right? Or lashing out. And I had to learn how to not do either of those and how to respond in a completely different way. And that's the really hard part is doing something completely different in the moment when you feel like lashing out, when you feel like acting out of that story.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, there's so many parallels to what you're sharing in this regard as to relationships, life, business, and everything else.
Oh, yeah.
It's so fascinating. But I think that's what makes you so great at what it is that you do and why you wrote this particular book, right? And I think that that's such a beautiful thing. So let's hear a little bit more about the book and its concept. You know, in the book, what are a couple of the things that you really want people to take away, or what were some of the favorite parts that you were actually able to articulate on and write and share because you know they're so meaningful?
I mean, I think it was so meaningful for me to just share from my perspective and my story and what I've walked through because I've walked through some pretty unique things that not everyone experiences. And without those things, I probably would not have even seen my story, right? That I was already telling myself. And what I love to harp on is like, you're not a victim here, because that's what your resentment story tells you is that you're stuck. It's happening to you, like, because you can't make them change. You can't make them do anything. So you're literally stuck. That's like ultimate victim, right? There's literally nothing I can do. It's not up to me. And when you realize that you're not a victim and that you have choices in how you handle the relationship, how you handle this dynamic, how you move forward with your partner, it's the most empowering thing to realize. It frees you in a relationship that's supposed to be your best relationship. It's supposed to be life-giving. And I know what it's like to have that relationship feel completely dead, to feel completely hopeless, to feel like we just need to get divorced. And we were there and we did do that. And then I know what it's like to build something completely new together and realize, wow, we can actually change the patterns and dynamics that have been there for years, decades, and create something new that's way better than I could have imagined. That's the
Mm,
thing that I always said that I wanted. And now I actually know how to get there because I think for so long in marriage, you don't know where to turn or how to change things. For me, it just felt like, well, I guess he's trying, but I can't make him try harder and I can't make this feel different. So, like, I don't know what else to do. And it wasn't until I discovered my resentment and like our patterns in the relationship and we got to start actively changing those that I began to see him shift. And not just in a, I want to check these behaviors off way, but in a, he actually feels different way. He's actually a different person way. And I think most people are waiting for that, right? They don't
yeah.
want a partner that's like, I'm just here to check the boxes. They want a partner that actually changes the same way that they're going to change. And so that's what I'm most excited for in the book is like, this is actually your roadmap to
Mm,
getting that change that you can't really find when you just take communication tips or go to therapy together, right? Like,
right.
and I'm opposed to those things. We did therapy for years. The therapy and talking about things didn't actually change the patterns for us.
Mm, mm. You know, it's interesting. One of the things I love when people write books is they find something that's worked for them. They do something at a really high level that matters to their life, and they're able to share that. And I think that's what you've distilled in this book, right? And
Yeah.
and I come back to this, Joy, because one of the things that stops people so much from writing a book in general, whether it's a business book, a leadership book, a legacy book, or whatever it may be, whatever industry they're a part of, is people struggle to just have the courage to put themselves out there and to share their story. How have you garnered not only the courage to be able to write a book, but to be able to write a book on a pretty sensitive topic that a lot of people would avoid talking about just in general, right? So how do you get that courage, and how can you share with all of us?
I'm laughing because if you know me, you know I'm the person that says the thing that everyone thinks, but no one says out loud. Because that's just who I am. I have to go there. But also, I'm laughing because resentment to me is not a hard thing to talk about when you've been through infidelity and you've talked about that openly, right? So, like, I think once we went through infidelity, and first of all, when we went through it in 2015, I didn't know one person that I could call. I didn't know one person who had been through it. I thought I was the only one. I felt a lot of shame around that fact that something must be wrong with me because look, everybody else has this figured out, but I clearly don't, right? And I remember just being on the couch feeling completely alone and being like, I'm the only one. And then as I began to heal and find other women that had been through this, I realized I was not only not the only one, I was not even the exception, that it was actually a pretty big norm, right? And that got me mad because I was like, where the fuck were all of you? Like, why did you let me sit here and think I was so alone? And so from that day on, I just felt like I had to be that woman that someone else out there on the couch could say, well, at least I know her. Like at least she's been through this too, right? So I literally started doing the hashtag Me Too back in like 2017, 2018 when I was first starting to share before the Me Too movement came out. Because I just wanted women to know you're not alone. And so as I began to share more and more about our story, I just grew in confidence because I'm not here for people who want to hate or want to give any kind of negativity toward it. I really don't even care, right? What people say or think about it. I'm just here to share what's real because that's what resonates with people. That's what helps people. That's what helps me when I'm going through something. And so I wanted women to know they weren't alone. And then resentment came again, as I was sharing, hey, we're going through this in our relationship, and I just realized I have a load of resentment, and it's causing me all these issues in my marriage. And women were like, oh, please talk about this. And I was like, what? I was like, you want me to talk about resentment? And then I was like, I don't even know what I would say. And then, of course, I sat down and started to think about it. And I was like, no, I think I could say something. So that's when the course was born. And then it's just been a journey ever since then.
Okay, that's an interesting segue into talking about the book and how you built something on the back end of it. And I think what you said, you nailed it, was people were wanting to come along with you.
Yeah.
They wanted to hear somebody who has gone through something or who could voice something that they couldn't put words on into it. They wanted to hear someone be able to do that in a way that they would understand and resonate with, so that then they could figure out what's going on in their own relationships, right? And you became that voice.
Yeah.
Now, once people started asking you about it, because this is always one of the biggest indicators that if someone's asking you a lot of the same questions,
Yeah.
you might have something to build off of. And
Right.
so when people started asking you about that, you did more content on it and then you
Yeah.
built out your course. So tell us about how you kind of built a name in the space and kind of what came next from the business. Was it the course? And then we'll get to the book eventually and how it all ties together.
Yeah. Yeah, I launched the course in summer of 2022, right before I gave birth. And I launched it because it had had such a great response from people. And I said, would you want a course? And everybody was like, yes. So I launched it and we had a great live course that was just 3 modules at the time, right? I got it all wrapped up and done and then gave birth and had my baby who passed away unexpectedly. And so the course kind of became this anchor in my brand that I wasn't even planning on. Would not have picked for that to be the anchor, but that is what really resonated with people. And then they got to watch me go through loss of a child, loss of an infant, a lot of trauma around that. And even having to walk through that and not have resentment, right? Was just more depth to the platform, to the content, to the people coming to my page. And then I just kept getting more bold in what I was willing and not willing to say online about marriage, about infidelity, about losing a child, about resentment, just things that I've now lived through that I've been willing to say, you know what, this is what I actually think about it. You know what, this is what I've actually felt about it. And I watched what's hit with people and what hasn't, right? And then I just use
Mm,
that as feedback as to what is needed in this space. Because I'm not here to just be one voice in a million all saying the same thing. I'm here to listen to my audience and to serve them and to give them what they need. And so they've always shown me that's what they're desperate for. And yeah, it can create the most controversy, it can create the most backlash, but it's also a space that nobody's in. Nobody's talking about resentment. Nobody's like,
mm.
so that's just how it grew from there. And then I knew that I was going to write a book, but I wasn't sure when or what. And I just woke up a year ago on my birthday and I was like, it's time. So I started writing my book. And it's been such a culmination, I think, of the last 4 years because it just feels like that last missing piece to come in to kind of create this perfect arc for my audience. There's people out there that aren't ready for the course yet. There's people that financially aren't ready, or they're intimidated, or maybe they want their spouse to do this work with them, but the course sounds intimidating for a spouse. So we have couples reading the book right now together, right? So it's just a really needed niche that no one's in. And I've just been grateful that I get to take this on. And it's definitely been a journey, not what I thought I would be talking about, but I'm happy to own it because I've lived through it and I have authority in that space because of walking through it myself.
What did the book do for you? Okay, because what did the book do for you from a standpoint of there's internal and external, okay? And as you wrote this book, and then as you got closer to producing it, launching it, and we started working together in all of these pieces, did anything shift with you internally? Was there a newfound sense of ownership around this concept? Was there a more like, yes, this is what I need to be doing? Yes, this is finishing up a time of my life. Yes, this is oh my gosh, it brings me joy. Like what were the emotions that you had as you wrote the book and how did they shift from start to finish?
Um, Emotions in the beginning, I think I was excited and intimidated. But very excited about it because it just felt like time. It felt like I was ready and I finally had something to say in addition to the course. Because also, I didn't want this to be the course. People keep asking, is this the course? I'm like, no, it's a book. Um, but I would say as I kept going through this process, I really leaned into just owning this space because this space isn't owned by anybody else. And I think I'm not the person, while I will say everything, I'm not the person to climb up and be like, well, this is mine. Do you know what I mean? Whereas a
Yeah.
bunch of other people that own different niches can be that way. So as I wrote, I was like, you know what? I am an authority in this, and this is my space to really own and to help people with. And so it just felt like it gave me way more authority in owning that and completion in that. And it just feels like the missing piece, honestly, like
Yeah.
I said before, in my funnel, because you can have a course, but to also be an author of it really gives you that clout and that clarity to be like, no, this is my topic. Like
Yeah.
this is what I do. You like you think of Brene Brown, everyone knows that she talks about shame because she has books, not because she has courses, right? So I think I just wanted to become more of an authority, and that's what this gave me.
And your book's pretty fresh at the time of this recording. All right.
Yeah.
You wrote this book, had a baby, launched this book on your birthday, like all in less than a year. Okay. Wild, amazing, incredible. How and what has already shifted since the book came out? What's already changing? What are you noticing about yourself? What are you most excited about doing? Like, talk to us about where you see this going for you.
I mean, well, first of all, I've already had a secondary product now for people that are already customers of the resentment trap, right?
Yep.
And like I said, we've now had people reaching out saying they're reading it together as a couple.
Mm.
That's amazing because we've had a lot of people say, like, we want to do something as a couple, but the course is super geared towards like women, right? So I think that's really cool to see that expanding in that way. But I would say my confidence in myself and in this topic and in just being like, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I do, has exponentially grown through this whole thing. Um, so I'm really happy about that because I can be someone that's like, well, I don't know if I want it to be this. Maybe I want something else. I can be a manifesting generator or an Enneagram 7 and jump from thing to thing. So it's really good for me to anchor that, right? Because true brands have an anchor and they can expand and grow on that, but they are consistent in
Mhm.
having like this is our thing. And so for me, I've seen that there's been a lot of hype around the book. We've gotten more attention because of the book. People are really excited about it. I've had friends and family buy it, which they wouldn't normally buy the course, right? So we're reaching people that wouldn't buy the course. So I don't know. To me, it's just a win all around, and I can't wait to see it keep expanding.
Do you see yourself ever doing something with all the couples that read it? Are you going to be hosting couples retreats and making your own couples retreat 2 movie?
I should. I should. I don't know where this is going to go, but I have had people ask for couples coaching too. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that's really interesting because before your audience was predominantly female, right? And I
Yeah.
mean it still is, but did you anticipate this becoming a book that couples would read together? Was that part of the
No.
vision when you did this, or is that something that just kind of came about now that we're here?
It's kind of coming about organically. I will say I put in a chapter specifically to men for wives to show their husbands because
Awesome.
oftentimes men want help understanding the woman who's trying to heal, but also women are like, can you see what she's saying so that we can do this together type thing.
Mm,
So I did include a chapter for men in there. And surprisingly, we have a fair amount of men reach out asking if we help men. So I kind of wanted to include them in this. Maybe this is my bridge over into men's work next. I'm not sure, but it is kind of bridging that gap right now between not having really anything for men or couples.
I love that. You know, there's so many different things you say in the book, different taglines that you have. We've been doing some other work together, and there's so many cool things that you have related to this because you're such an authority and an expert on your specific lane. Like you know this stuff really, really well. You've lived it and you can teach it. One of the things that we noticed and we flagged when we were doing some research on this is it's not really about saving your marriage. This
Right?
book, it's really about saving yourself from disappearing in the marriage.
Yeah.
And can you kind of explain how people can think about that? Because I think so many people in life or relationships, regardless of what it is, it's this all or nothing mentality on a lot of things. Like, oh, it's the ultimate outcome, but not really the shorter thing. Or as you said earlier, the symptom that can be fixed, can be solved, can be looked for a solution. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that concept?
Well, I wanted women to go into this book not feeling pressure to have to stay, as I think we haven't been shown how to effect change in our relationship or have emotional, healthy boundaries or anything like that without ultimatums. So we think we either have to stay and put up with it or we have to threaten divorce and leave. And none of us were shown like how to healthily change things together in a dynamic because our parents didn't really show us that, right? That was not like a generational thing. So I wanted them to feel like they weren't walking into this with pressure of like, you just need to suck it up and stay. And if you have resentment, you just need to change you. because that's not who I am and that's not my story. That's not
Mm,
what I'm going to tell you to do. So, this book is different in that it's going to help you shift your relationship to resentment and it's going to help you learn how to show up in a healthy way in your relationship. And it's going to bring you clarity on if you're staying, if you're changing, or if you're leaving, right?
mm,
Because ultimately, resentment's going to make you make a choice. It's not going to let you stay in that same spot. And this book is going to help you make that choice. And
mm,
I'm not here to tell you what choice is the right one to make. Only you can decide that for you. Only you can know. And there's a lot of marriages and relationships that might need some sort of an ending. Doesn't mean it's forever. My own relationship needed an ending so that we could create something new. And again, I don't think that that's ever talked about enough, and people don't know how to actually do that. But when you're together a really, really long time and you're not actively changing things to now fit who you are 10 years down the road, now fit who you guys are together as a couple 10 years down the road, you're just asking for resentment. You're asking for an unhealthy blow up, right? And so that's what we need to be addressing. That's what we need to learn how to be changing. And I wanted to help give women the tools to learn how to change that no matter what they end up doing. Because if you don't know how to change your relationship to resentment or in a relationship, show up in a healthy way that doesn't create resentment, you might end this relationship, but you'll carry it into another one. You'll create the same thing in
mm.
the next one because it's a pattern. It's not the person, right? And maybe it's different with the new person, but it's still going to show up in some form. So that's what the book is for.
I'm gonna ask a hard-hitting question that I think some people wouldn't ask. I'm sure you're comfortable talking about it, but people might be listening to this right now and they might be thinking, okay, I'm hearing you. How do you know if a marriage is worth healing and a marriage is truly, truly over?
Well, that's where I tell everyone only you can know that. If there's too much water under the bridge for you, or if you really don't think that they'll change. But for me personally, I knew that first of all, I needed to give it 100% all in for a specific period of time. Because if I was really honest with myself, I had had years of resentment that had kept me 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I wasn't going 100%. I wasn't taking 100% responsibility for my part or my story or how I was reacting, right? I was sitting here pointing the finger way more than I was looking at myself. So you have to give it 100% for a specific period of time while you do anything you can and everything you can to try to change yourself and help change the dynamics.
Mm,
But it has to
mm,
start with you, right? Because a leader goes first. If you truly, truly want change, if you truly, truly say that you want this relationship to work, you got to put your money where your mouth is and you got to be willing to go first, even if they owe you, or even if you think they're wrong. Now, obviously, I'm not talking to abuse. I'm not talking to situations where there's anything that's like boundary crossing. I'm not talking to that. But if you know, if you're really honest with yourself, that you have not given it 100% for a very long time or ever, or for a specific period of time and done literally everything you could, including going first and actually changing first, then I don't think you're ready to leave because
mm,
the point of ending a relationship isn't, I just hope this will go away, right? I think a lot of people just hopes it will go away. And maybe it does for a little while, but again, like I said, you'll bring it back up in the next relationship. It'll be
mm,
a continuing pattern in your life. The point of a divorce is we've both grown together to a point and we can't grow together anymore. And that's why we're separating, right? And you would hope that that could be done in a really healthy way. If there's kids, co-parenting, all of that still has to carry on in a really healthy way. Well, if you're not actually doing the work first, none of that's probably going to go super healthy, right?
mm,
So that for me would be the answer is like only you can know, but you got to get really, really freaking honest with yourself about if you've owned your stuff 100%, if you've taken responsibility 100%, if you've gone first to do the work to change with or without them. You can't sit here and wait for them to do the work. Have you gone first?
mm.
And then only after you can be really honest with yourself, that's when you can make that decision.
Got it. In the spirit of that, as we get ready to wrap up here, and tell everyone where to get the book and your course and everything else, if there is somebody listening right now and they wanted to start doing this work, right? They wanted to go first because either they're in a great relationship, but they think they can make it a little better Because as you mentioned, resentment doesn't have to be bad. It just has to be something that you're aware of. And there's always things people can improve. So whether you have a great relationship and you want a better relationship, or you're
Yeah.
feeling like you have a struggling relationship and you want to improve it, what would be your recommendation for their beginning next step in the spirit of the conversation we've had today?
Get the book.
Nice.
Get the book.
Nice.
The book doesn't just explain how resentment forms and like how to shift it. It has amazing reflection questions every chapter. So it
Mm.
actually helps you start implementing what you're learning by having you stop and start answering questions and start digging deeper and finding your story and figuring out how you can start changing it, right? So if you want an easy way to start, that's the easiest way to start. If you're like ready to go all in, then get the course, is what I would say.
See, and that's something that I really like is like you said earlier today, this is kind of filling up the funnel, right? So if you want to get started and you want to just dip your feet in, you get the book, you learn, you do it on your own time. If you're ready to go really in, you get the course. Similar topic, different depth. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is so powerful and why this is going to be so successful for you. So, Joy, how do we follow you, support you, buy the book, join the course? Tell us where to go, give us all the goods.
You can either go to joyharrington.com, super easy, or you can go to joyharrington.ig on Instagram, and all the links are there too. So,
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
We'll link all that up. Well, Joy, this was fun. I got to say when you came and we started working together, I was like, this is going to be so fun. And we went through this process together, and you were pregnant, and you were like, okay, hang on a sec here. We gotta let's figure out the best time for this. We kind of went on a couple month hiatus. You had your baby. We're like, oh, you're launching on your birthday. Like, what a
Yeah.
celebratory moment. And then you freaking did it. And I'm just like, this was so cool. I was so grateful to be part of your journey throughout this book experience because it's like you almost birthed two babies at the same time.
We
Um,
did.
yeah. And so just thank you for trusting us to help you get it done in a very busy time of your life. And we're grateful to be a part of it. And we're grateful for everyone that gets a chance to read your book and hear your truth.
Well, thank you for helping me do this process because that's the part that was so intimidating to me and helping me with a plan to hit bestseller because we literally hit bestseller within 24 hours
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
launch. So I'll
You,
take it.
Yeah, you freaking crushed that initial launch and it's awesome. And that's the momentum that's starting. There's some exciting things I won't share at the time of this recording that you got planned in the very near future. And people will see that, I'm sure, when this is out. So, Joy, thank you for being here. And I appreciate you. And for everyone else, make sure to tag Joy, grab the book, The Resentment Trap. And we look forward to hearing your stories. We'll talk to you all
Thank you for
soon.
having